excellent for the workers, for the business people.
There are benefits for so many categories of persons.
I am ecstatic, and generally I believe that the budget is a good midterm budget.
I'm extremely pleased with the budget. It's a people-friendly budget.
Very good budget to continue our progress and hopefully to carry us right up to 2020.
Budget 2018 met the expectation of the ordinary men and women of Guyana.
Good budget given the challenges that we've had.
We continue on the journey to a good life.
The budget has quite a lot contained in it, and it is going to be good for Guyana.
Oh, this is the best people's budget I have seen for a long time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the motion for the approval of the estimates of the public sector and the budget for financial year 2018. It pleases me greatly to be able to deliver Budget 2018, the fourth of 6 budgets that this government is expected to present in this House during its fourth term. This fourth budget is being presented at the middle of this government's fourth term in office. Indeed, it was approximately 2.5 years ago when the people of this great country of ours gave a mandate to a coalition of 2 parties, a Partnership for National Unity and Alliance for Change, to harness the energies and resources of our citizens to generate a popular platform for change in government and governance. Importantly, the 2 parties expressed an abiding wish to become, quote, a change agent for healing and reconciliation, end of quote, in recognition of the role that conflict and strife have played in destabilizing race relations. This has had devastating consequences on the psyche of our people, which has left us being, quote, distrustful, disrespectful, and disdainful of each other, end of quote, according to the joint manifesto of the coalition. Mr. Speaker, we were never in doubt about the enormity of the task which lay ahead. We were in a hurry to rebuild a country that was marred and scarred by poor and corrupted governance under the PPPC administration. Contrary to what is being peddled by our detractors, the net foreign assets position of the Bank of Guyana has increased from $611 million in May 2015 to a projected $630 million at the end of 2017, while inflation has been kept in check. We have established the Public Procurement Commission and the State Assets Recovery Agency and reconstituted the Public Service Appellate Tribunal after a hiatus of many years. Importantly, democracy at the local level has been restored with the holding of local government elections after an absence of 22 years, and the establishment of the Local Government Commission. Mr. Speaker, these are just some of the impressive achievements and successes that we have recorded since coming to office. To quote the carpenters, we've only just begun. The theme of Budget 2018 is "The journey to the good life continues." It signifies an awareness of the road traveled so far and our accomplishments. Equally, it symbolizes a work in progress, a road still to be traveled, a journey unfinished. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2018 is about the government continuing to rise to the challenges and fostering the conditions and creating opportunities for renewal and expansion in the economy in order to secure the good life in the future. As a result, Budget 2018 focuses on a number of strategic actions, including consolidating the macroeconomic fundamentals, fostering higher growth for more and better jobs, improving the quality of life of our people, investing in skills development, investing massively in infrastructure, doing more to facilitate business, stimulating growth and employment in the productive sectors, and supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises, among others. Mr. Speaker, our citizens want to own green jungles bursting with life and biodiversity, as well as modern urban structures. They want to be able to see the stars in the sky at night, not filtered by smog. They wish to travel to work, school, home, and play without being stuck for hours in traffic jams or having to take days to get there. Our citizens want good education, quality health care, fresh foods, their own home, safe communities and towns, fair and efficient systems, and value for money on their tax dollar. Budget 2018 aims to deliver all of these improvements as we invite every Guyanese to create an inclusive path as the journey to the good life continues. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the traditional organizations which are usually invited, as has become customary, the pre-budget consultation exercise was expanded this year to include a group of young, dynamic entrepreneurs, among others. My interaction with these groups reassured me that our country's future is secure. I also want to thank the Guyana Manufacturing and Service Association for ensuring frank and productive discussions in the ongoing interministerial GMSA engagement. This has resulted in several government interventions and has fostered a healthy working relationship between the government and the private sector. We anticipate that this will continue and will ultimately lead to and drive growth in the manufacturing and services sector. Economic developments in the world economy. Mr. Speaker, global economic growth is expected to improve through 2017 as markets benefit from increased investment, trade, and industrial production, as well as reinvigorated business and consumer confidence. The International Monetary Fund, in its most recent World Economic Outlook, has projected global growth to reach 3.6% in 2017, 0.4 percentage points higher than the level recorded in 2016 and 0.1 percentage points above its previous forecast. In 2018, global growth is projected to rise marginally to 3.7%. Mr. Speaker, advanced economies are projected to grow by 2.2% in 2017 as a result of various factors, including an increase in global demand, stronger exports, and supported fiscal and monetary policy. In 2018, growth in this area is anticipated to decline to 2% on account of lower expected growth in all major economies, apart from the United States and France. The United Kingdom expects to see declining growth as the effects of Brexit continue to take a toll on the economy, with a dampening of consumption growth due to a weakening of the pound. Additionally, economic expansion in emerging markets and developing economies is anticipated to improve from earlier projections, with 4.6% growth expected for 2017, 0.3 percentage points above the growth recorded in 2016. The Chinese economy was sustained by buoyant external demand, which is anticipated to support further expansion in growth in 2018 to 4.9%. Mr. Speaker, the economies of Latin America and the Caribbean are expected to finally recover in 2017. Following significant declines over the past few years, growth of 1.2% and 1.9% is expected in 2017 and 2018 respectively. The anticipated recovery in the region will be supported by improved demand from external trading partners and accommodative financial conditions on account of a less volatile international financial market and resilient capital inflows. In the Caribbean, overall growth projections for 2018 show an improvement to 1.9% from 0.3% the previous year. However, Trinidad and Tobago and Suriname are projected to contract by 3.2% and 1.2% respectively, as the downturn in previous years extend into 2017. In 2018, however, these economies are expected to recover, and as a group, both the tourism-dependent and commodity exporters are projected to record over 2% respectively, with Trinidad and Tobago projected to expand by 1.9% and Suriname by 1.2%, as prices are anticipated to rebound. Despite the improved outlook, the region still faces a number of risks, including climate-related catastrophes, which are expected to increase in frequency, capital flow reversals, tightening financial conditions, and volatile commodity prices. Mr. Speaker, as a commodity-dependent economy, we must remain vigilant of the impact of fluctuations in international commodity prices. Agricultural commodity prices remain broadly stable for most of 2017, growing at 1%, and are expected to increase marginally in 2018. Within this category, international rice prices are expected to increase by 0.75% and timber by 1%. The international price of gold rose by 2% in the third quarter of 2017 to approximately $1,350 per ounce, driven by strong investment and a weakening US dollar. Notwithstanding, gold prices are expected to decline by the end of 2017 and into 2018 due to an anticipated rise in US interest rates and a strengthening of the US dollar. In contrast, the price of aluminium has risen by 5% in 2017 thus far and is expected to continue to rise in 2018 due to a surge in global demand. While the price of Brent crude oil, one of Guyana's key imports, remained relatively low during the course of 2017, prices are expected to rebound. At the end of 2017, oil prices are expected to average US $53 per barrel and US $56 per barrel in 2018, a reflection of strong oil demand, falling stocks, and production restraint among OPEC and non-OPEC producers. Mr. Speaker, while Guyana is undoubtedly on the path to the good life, unpredictable commodity prices, climate change, and financial stability risks have the ability over time to stymie our economic performance. We must continue to build a more resilient and diversified economy that is capable of withstanding external shocks. In light of these considerations, I will now address the main developments in our domestic economy during 2017. Real gross domestic product. Mr. Speaker, the overall growth rate for 2017 was projected at 3.8%. By mid-year, an economic growth rate of 2.2% was achieved, up from 2% for the same period the previous year. In the mid-year report laid in the National Assembly on August the 4th, the projection for 2017 was revised downwards to 3.1% on account of expected weak performance in the mining and quarrying sector and the sugar and forestry industries. The projected outturn for growth of the economy in 2017 is 2.9%. Sectoral performance, agriculture, forestry, and fishing. Mr. Speaker, the agriculture, fishing, and forestry sector is expected to recover this year with an estimated growth of 0.2%, up from the 10.3% decline recorded for 2016. This reversal will be due to the anticipated positive growth performance in rice, fishing, livestock, and other crop subsectors, which will more than compensate for the continued decline in the sugar and forestry industries. The rice industry is expected to record an output of 602,087 tons for 2017, an increase of 12.7% over 2016. This is due mainly to an additional 14,000 hectares planted for 2017 spring crop and a further 74,401 hectares planted in the autumn crop. Also, there was an improvement in yields. These developments stem from farmers' renewed confidence in their ability to access new markets. The recent attendance by the private sector at the Havana International Fair in Cuba helped to stimulate foreign investment in the industry. Mr. Speaker, sugar production is projected to decline to 152,000 tons in 2017, a 17.2% reduction compared to 2016's output. Opposition to the ongoing restructuring of the industry has led to the loss of almost 22,000 man-days due to industrial action. Mr. Speaker, preliminary estimates indicate that the livestock industry is projected to grow by 4.4% at the end of 2017, compared to a decline of 5.8% in 2016. Improved consumer demand and producer confidence precipitated this turnaround in this subsector during the second half of 2017. The fishing industry is anticipated to record a 1% growth for 2017, down from 18.1% in 2016. The industry has reported lower catches of fish, partly as a result of stronger enforcement of cross-border fishing regulations. The forestry subsector is expected to show some improvement with a projected slowing of the contraction to 7.2% in 2017 from 27.3% in 2016. Total production for 2017 is projected at 297,070 cubic meters, 10% lower than 2016. The subsector continues to face several problems, especially competition from imported wood products. Government is actively working with the industry to support growth going forward. Mining and quarrying. Mr. Speaker, the mining and quarrying sector is anticipated to contract by 1.9% compared to the 46.1% expansion in 2016. While gold decorations are expected to remain stable, bauxite production and other mining will decline by 2.3% and 12.6% respectively. Gold decoration is expected to amount to approximately 712,706 ounces, while bauxite production is projected to decline to 1,417,557 tons for 2017 as a result of inclement weather and mechanical problems that resulted in significant downtime. Manufacturing. Mr. Speaker, manufacturing is projected to grow by 3.6% as a result of the improved performance of the rice industry and light manufacturing. In addition, there was increased production of certain beverages such as malta, distilled water, and aerated beverages, as well as certain building materials, including paint and putty. Construction. Mr. Speaker, growth in construction is expected to accelerate in 2017 to 13.5%, 7.2 percentage points higher than in 2016. This positive development is attributed to increased activity in private sector construction, as well as measures taken by government to improve the implementation of the public sector investment program. Services. Mr. Speaker, as our economy has advanced over the years, the services sector has grown in importance and now represents over half of Ghana's GDP. This sector is expected to grow by 3.1% in 2017. Wholesale and retail will expand by 3.1%. Transport and storage will improve to 3.9%, and growth in the financial and insurance activities will double to 5.8%. Balance of payments. Mr. Speaker, the overall balance of payments is expected to improve slightly to a deficit of US $53.1 million in 2017. This outcome will be primarily driven by an improvement in the capital account from a deficit of US $13.2 million in 2016 to an anticipated surplus of US $181.8 million in 2017. This is in spite of the deterioration of the current account from a surplus of US $13 million in 2016 to a projected deficit of US $235 million in 2017. The anticipated decline in the current account is expected to be as a result of increased deficits in both the merchandise trade by US $140 million and services by US $74.1 million accounts, and reduced net current transfers by US $33.9 million. Despite increased exports of rice and gold by 8.7% and 1.5% respectively, exports are anticipated to decline marginally by 0.1%, primarily as a result of a projected decline in sugar exports of 36.6%. Merchandise imports are estimated to grow by 9.6%, primarily driven by increased imports of mining machinery, chemicals, fuel and lubricants, and other non-durable goods by 81.6%, 43.2%, 8%, and 25.1% respectively. The increased deficit in the factor services account is anticipated to result from increased repatriation of employee compensation by foreigners by 20%, declining investment income by 18.1%, and greater interest payments on public debt by 35.8%. The worsening of the non-factor services account is projected to be due to an 82.7% increase in outflows for transportation services. Mr. Speaker, although the current account is expected to weaken, the capital account is anticipated to improve due to strengthened net medium and long-term capital flows, both private and public sector. Projected foreign direct investment, particularly in the oil and gas sector, is expected to drive the US $145.2 million increase in private sector medium and long-term capital. Additionally, Net capital to the non-financial public sector is anticipated to strengthen to a surplus of $67.2 million US, reflecting higher disbursement of loans. Debt relief of US $17.7 million and debt forgiveness of US $55.5 million are expected to finance the balance of payments deficit for 2017 and permit an increase in the Bank of Guyana's net foreign assets by $20.1 million US. Gross reserves of the Bank of Guyana are expected to be equivalent to approximately 3.4 months of import cover at the end of 2017, well above the 3 months minimum benchmark for reserve adequacy. Monetary developments. Mr. Speaker, an expansion of monetary aggregates of broad money of 3.6% is projected for 2017. This is as a result of an expected 5.8% increase in narrow money M1 on account of expansions in demand deposits and currency in circulation by 10.9% and 6.6% respectively. This performance is expected to stem from an anticipated 8.1% increase in net domestic credit. Within quasi-money, which is estimated to expand by 2%, time and savings deposits are expected to grow by 3.1% and 1.9% respectively. Mr. Speaker, net domestic credit is projected to expand by 8.1% to $214.9 billion, with private sector credit growing by 2.1% and public sector credit increasing by 233.6%. Private sector credit growth is expected to result from an increase in credit card transactions by 16%, real estate mortgages by 8.3%, loans to the mining sector by 1.9%, and credit to households by 0.5%. Mr. Speaker, capitalization of commercial banks remains satisfactory, despite a decline in total liquid assets to $115.5 billion. Treasury bills account for 54.2% of that amount. The excess reserves of commercial banks at the end of September 2017 were $22.6 billion, 50% above the minimum requirement. Prices and incomes. Inflation. Mr. Speaker, the average price level across the economy as measured by the Consumer Price Index was projected at 2.5% in budget 2017. With a slower growth in demand and consumer spending, the inflation rate was moderate at the half year and continued through to the end of the third quarter, with inflation recorded at 1.5%. Even allowing for the seasonal increase in spending in the fourth quarter, the end-of-year projection has been revised to a moderate 2%. Interest rates. Mr. Speaker, the weighted average lending rate fell slightly by 17 basis points since December 2016, or from 10.43% to 10.26%. Concurrently, the small savings rate also contracted by 15 basis points to 1.1% for the same period. Notwithstanding the narrowing of the interest rate spread, it still remains one of the widest in the Caribbean. Treasury bill rates also declined, with the 91-day bills contracting by 14 basis points to 1.54% between December 2016 and September 2017. Interest rates for the 182-day Treasury bills also declined by 53 basis points to 1.15% for the same period. The rates for the 364-day Treasury bill saw an even larger decline by 90 basis points to 1.23% for the same period. Exchange rate. The Bank of Guyana exchange rate of the Guyana dollar to US dollar is expected to remain stable at 206.5 Guyana dollars. The exchange rate for the euro at the commercial banks appreciated against the Guyana dollar by 7.7% between January and September 2017. The pound sterling also appreciated against the Guyana dollar by 6.6% for the same period. Additionally, the US dollar appreciated by 1.6% against the Guyana dollar. Early in the year, the Bank of Guyana moved to implement countervailing measures to prevent manipulation of the foreign exchange rate and to ensure a greater and smoother flow of receipts to the foreign currency market. Income. Mr. Speaker, although negotiations for improved wages were started with the Guyana Public Service Union, they remained incomplete. Given the timing for presentation of Budget 2018, government moved forward to implement increases to public servants' wages and salaries for 2017. After careful consideration and reflection on the circumstances facing our economy, government granted the following increases. 8% increase for those earning less than 100,000 per month. 6% for those earning between 100,000 and 300,000. 5% to those earning between 300,000 to below 500,000. 4% to those earning between 500,000 to below 700,000. 2% to those earning between 700,000 to below 800,000, and 0.5% to those earning between 800,000 to below $1 million. These increases were made retroactive to January 1st, 2017. Mr. Speaker, and are intended to bring the wage level in the public sector to a more competitive one incrementally, in an attempt to ensure that government can attract the requisite skills necessary to facilitate a better functioning public service. In this vein, government has also raised the minimum basic salary for each public servant to $60,000 per month. CC to under 3,000 CC, and which are less than 4 years, the excise tax will be slashed from 110% to 0. For vehicles over 3,000 cc to 4,000 cc, and which are less than 4 years, the excise tax will be reduced from 140% to 0. 2. I propose to grant free vehicle license to motor buses and motor vehicles that operate in regions numbers 1, 7, 8, and 9. 3. I propose to remove the VAT on vehicles that are less than 4 years, which are used to transport more than 21 persons. And 4, I propose to remove the excise flat rate tax of US $6,900 and replace it with a VAT of 14% on vehicles 4 years and older that carry between 22 and 29 passengers. Small businesses. Mr. Speaker, many small businesses do not adequately utilize the various concessions available under the various tax acts, the Small Business Act, and those offered through investment development agreements. In particular, small businesses do not get the benefit of concessions under the Small Business Act. Exemptions go a-begging, and the various allowances under the Income Tax Act, the Income Tax in Aid of Industry Acts, with an engine capacity not exceeding 2,000 cc and not exceeding 4 years old from the date of manufacture to the date of importation. 2, I propose to amend Part 3B1 of the 4th Schedule to the Customs Act, Chapter 8201, to exempt machinery and equipment from the payment of customs duties to set up refilling stations for such vehicles as determined by the Commissioner General. The VAT will still be payable. These measures will take effect from January 1, 2018. Measures to increase workers' income tax, personal allowance. Mr. Speaker, currently, a person who works for a part of the year can claim only a part of the personal allowance of $720,000. By way of an example, if a person works for only 6 months in an entire year and earns $600,000, she will only be able to claim half of the personal allowance, or $360,000. Therefore, income tax of $67,200 will have to be paid on the chargeable income of $240,000, being the difference between $600,000 and $360,000. I now propose that the minimum personal allowance of $720,000 be given in full, regardless of whether a person works for the whole year or a part of the year. The tax deducted, in this case $67,200, by the employer and remitted to the Ghana Revenue Authority will be refunded to those employees whose income did not reach $720,000. This relief will clearly benefit those low-income earners who may have been unable to work for the entire year. This new measure will help also to simplify the personal allowance calculation, thus easing the administrative burden for GRA. The revenue loss is estimated to exceed $400 million. This measure takes effect from year of income 2018. Income tax travel allowance. Mr. Speaker, currently, public sector employees enjoy a tax-free vacation allowance, regardless of whether they spend their vacation in Guyana or abroad. On the other hand, private sector employees are only given the allowance to the extent of the cost of the passage to travel abroad. I propose to remove this anomaly, thereby allowing private sector employees to enjoy the vacation allowance tax-free and to use it as they see fit. As in the case of public sector employees, a tax-free vacation allowance to a private sector employee will be allowed up to a maximum of 1 month of the employee's base salary. The GRA will scrutinize these allowances closely to ensure that the previous abuse of this benefit in kind, where employees who are being paid huge vacation allowances in lieu of salaries, does not recur. This measure takes effect from January 1, 2018. Measures in support of the elderly and those in difficult circumstances. Mr. Speaker, since May 2015, the government has consistently showed its concern for the plight of the elderly and those who find themselves in difficult circumstances. In this regard, we have increased the old age pension annually to its present amount of $19,000. In addition, we relieve pensioners from the payment of departure tax, driver's license, and passport. With effect from January 1, 2018, old age pensions will rise to $19,500, an almost 49% increase in just 2.5 years. Similarly, effective January 1, 2018, public assistance will be increased to $8,000, approximately 36% growth over the same period. Measures in support of the private sector. Mr. Speaker, the following measures are proposed in support of the private sector to stimulate economic activity. 1. Forestry. Mr. Speaker, the following package of incentives to the forestry sector is intended to improve its competitiveness and boost output and incomes. A. As announced earlier this month, the restriction of the importation of pine wood and pine wood products with effect from January 1, 2018. 2. Following strong representation at the recent meeting of the Council for Trade and Economic Development quoted, an organ of CARICOM, Guyana's request for suspension to increase the common external tariff on pine wood and pine wood products from 5% to 40% has been approved. The new tariff will be in effect from January 1, 2018 through to December 31st, 2019. 3. With effect from January 1, 2018, I propose to exempt from value-added tax a supply of logs and rough lumber to the sawmilling industry. This will improve the cash flow of operators in the industry by at least $80 million. 4. The sum of $120 million has been set aside to commence a forest inventory. 5. An amount of $50 million has been allocated in Budget 2018 as an indication of government's preparedness to partner with the private sector in a public-private partnership to establish a dimension stockyard. 2. Gold. Mr. Speaker, the gold and diamond industry has been making a valuable contribution to gross domestic product, income, export earnings, and employment. In recognition of this, the government has enabled small and medium-scale miners to benefit from tax concessions on machinery, equipment, and fuel, and waiver and remission of taxes on vehicles based on gold declarations. For 2016, a total of $47.6 million in taxes was waived on motor vehicles, while for 2017, such waivers have amounted to $64.4 million for personal motor vehicles and $188 million for fuel so far. Many operators in the sector have been approved to hold foreign exchange retention accounts. Instead of the 10%, they have been allowed unlimited retention of foreign exchange to purchase mining equipment. Following strong representation by the Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association, I propose the following additional incentives to the industry. 1. A reduction in the tributous tax from 20% to 10% with effect on January 1st, 2018. Tributors will continue to file annual tax returns and pay any taxes due or be refunded as appropriate. Both the GRA and the GGMC will intensify their efforts to bring operators in the industry within the tax net. 2, replacement of the current 2% of the gross proceeds regime with a sliding scale percentage that is based on the price of gold as follows. Under US price per ounce of gold, under US $1,100, 2% income tax. US $1,100 and under US $1,300, 2.5% of gross proceeds. US $1,300 and under US $1,600, 3% of gross proceeds. Over US $1,600, 3.5% of gross proceeds. Operators in this industry will continue to keep records in keeping with the provisions of Section 33E5 of the Income Tax Act, Chapter 8101, which states, quote, "Nothing in this section shall be construed as exempting a gold or diamond miner from the requirement to keep adequate records of the income from mining operations," end of quote. Housing. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to support the housing sector and encourage the building of low-cost houses, I propose to exempt from VAT complete housing units costing up to $6.5 million that are built by or on behalf of the Central Housing and Planning Authority or any other approved entity. Transportation. Mr. Speaker, transportation is a critical sector in any economy, and the government has a responsibility through policies, regulations, and investments to ensure that the sector functions optimally. We recognize that the ability to acquire appropriate vehicles at more affordable prices will increase the number of vehicles operating, especially in the hinterland regions, thereby affording increased access to transportation for both businesses and individuals. As such, I propose to introduce the following measures with effect from January 1, 2018. 1, the reduction in the rates of excise tax on the importation of overland transportation used for tourism purposes in regions number 1, 7, 8, and 9. This concession will be applicable to vehicles between 2,000 cc and 4,000 cc that are used exclusively in the tourism sector for the transport of persons by incorporated entities that have been operating in those regions for at least 5 years. For vehicles 2,000 cc to under 3,000 cc and which are less than 4 years, the excise tax will be slashed from 110% to 0. For vehicles over 3,000 cc to 4,000 cc and which are less than 4 years, the excise tax will be reduced from 140% to 0. 2, I propose to grant free vehicle license to motor buses and motor vehicles that operate in regions numbers 1, 7, 8, and 9. 3, I propose to remove the VAT on vehicles that are less than 4 years, which are used to transport more than 21 persons. And 4, I propose to remove the excise flat rate tax of US $6,900 and replace it with a VAT of 14% on vehicles 4 years and older that carry between 22 and 29 passengers. Small businesses. Mr. Speaker, many small businesses do not adequately utilize the various concessions available under the various tax acts, the Small Business Act, and those offered through investment development agreements. In particular, small businesses do not get the benefit of concessions under the Small Business Act. Exemptions go a-begging, and the various allowances under the Income Tax Act, the Income Tax in Aid of Industry Act, and the Customs Act are often not utilized. The Ministry of Business, through Go Invest, and the Ministry of Finance, through GRA, will be embarking on an intensive education program aimed at sensitizing small businesses to the availability and accessing these concessions. Meanwhile, the sum of $100 million has been allocated in this budget to replenish the Small Business Development Fund. Educational services. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2017, as part of our efforts to widen the tax base, services provided by private educational institutions were standard rated, while educational supplies previously zero rated were exempted from the payment of the VAT. In view of the representations made, I propose to remove the VAT on the provision of all educational services with effect from January 1, 2018. At the same time, efforts will continue by the Ghana Revenue Authority to ensure that these institutions become tax compliant. The potential revenue loss is $342 million. Daycare centers. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2016, I intimated that concessions will be given to employers who provide daycare services to their employees and to businesses that provide and construct handicap facilities. The capital costs and expenses related to such provisions will be allowed in full as an expense to these employers and businesses. Amnesty. Mr. Speaker, I propose to grant an amnesty to all delinquent taxpayers, corporate and individual, who are outstanding in the filing of true and correct tax returns and payment of their true and correct taxes. This amnesty will be in effect from January 1, 2018 through to September 30th, 2018. Taxpayers who file and pay all principal taxes on or before June 30th, 2018 will have all interest and penalties waived, while those who file and pay all principal taxes between July 1, 2018 and September 30, 2018 will have 50% of interest and penalties waived. Taxpayers who expect to benefit from this amnesty must file true and correct returns. Those found in violation will be subject to an audit, and the attendant penalties and interest will be applied. The GRA will be devoting increased resources to enforcement of the income tax laws. Deposit to a board of appeal and a judge in chambers. Mr. Speaker, Section 82.5, appeals to the board against assessment stipulates, no appeal shall lie to the board unless the person aggrieved by an assessment made upon him by the Commissioner General has paid to the Commissioner General tax equal to 2/3 of the tax which is in dispute. Further, Section 98 of the Income Tax Act stipulates, no appeal shall lie under Section 86(1)(a) to a judge by a person to pay tax aggrieved by an assessment made upon him by the Commissioner General or by a decision of the board, unless that person has paid to the Commissioner General the whole amount of the tax which is in dispute under the assessment made upon him. In several cases, the lodgement of these deposits has proven to be onerous for businesses and ordinary taxpayers. I propose to reduce the deposits for these appeal matters to 1/3 of the tax in dispute, if less than $20 million, and the lodgement of a bond or other acceptable form of guarantee for disputes that are over $20 million. Yes. Filing of corporate tax returns without audited financial statements. Mr. Speaker, over the years, many companies have habitually filed their corporate tax returns after the due date of April 30th, thereby incurring needless penalties and interest. In an effort to alleviate this problem, I propose that in certain instances, as predetermined by the Commissioner General, draft management accounts be accepted for filing purposes, and the audited accounts filed on or before December 31st of the year in which the return falls due. Excellent. Provisional license for businesses. Mr. Speaker, statistics show that there are a large number of businesses that operate without license because of the difficulties in obtaining some of the requirements, including approved building plans and safety and sanitary certificates. Many of these businesses have constantly approached the GRA with a view of having their businesses registered. After careful consideration of the current requirements, I propose that a provisional license be issued for a period not exceeding 2 years for premises conducting some of the following businesses: grocery shops, variety stores, and snackets. It must be noted that this provisional license cannot be used to acquire any additional license, such as a liquor license. In addition, upon expiration of the provisional license, no extension will be granted. This measure takes effect from January 1, 2018. cleanup of VAT legislation and schedules. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2017, a suite of amendments were introduced to the VAT Act and schedules. With the benefit of a thorough review, it is recognized that additional amendments will be necessary to correct errors and omissions on the one hand, and to bring greater clarity to certain definitions and areas of the law. None of these proposed amendments will negatively affect any individual or business. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, we made a promise of a good life to the citizens of our country. In the words of His Excellency President David Granger, quote, "A good life is about making people happy. People will be happy when they know that they have a government which cares for them, when they see a bright future for their children and grandchildren, when they can be assured of life's basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, safe water, safe streets, a sound education, and high standards of health care," end of quote. Mr. Speaker, we did not promise that the good life will be achieved in our first term. For we have always been cognizant that it will be a long journey on a road with many winding turns. We have mapped out the direction, and in just 2.5 years, can count several accomplishments and achievements. Amongst the many challenges and obstacles thrown along the path to our destination. But Mr. Speaker, to become the realizers of the good life, we must challenge and re-image ourselves. We must be prepared to reinvent and create anew. Again, we are reminded by His Excellency that, quote, "A good life is about removing inequalities and providing opportunities for every citizen to be the best he or she can be," end of quote. This is what our government has set about to achieve. This is what all of our budgets to date have set out to do, to put in place the conditions for people to realize their aspirations and dreams for themselves. This is what Budget 2018 seeks to do. Our budget continues to be a platform for social and economic transformation for all Guyanese, addressing key problems and creating tangible outcomes that citizens feel in their daily lives. Today's budget goes beyond allocating resources and establishing development priorities for next year. It articulates the destiny we all want, which is the good life. It underscores the difficulties that lie ahead and sets realistic objectives and targets. As we continue to clear the pathway on our journey to the good life, let us together forge not only common dreams and commitments, but also become the architects of the ideals that we share. Mr. Speaker, let me close with a simple quote from Albert Schweitzer. Quote, "To work for the common good is the greatest crime." End of quote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, this is the best people's budget I have seen for a long time. It went down to the grassroots. It addressed the issues that the communities would want politicians to address. And therefore, I think in terms of size, wow, it's a $267 billion budget. It is, in terms of what you're saying, the biggest budget, yes. But how does it go down to the people in the grassroots, in the communities? That is what interests me as a politician. And I will say, from the social content, the people's content, this people's budget has influenced the life of everyone.
What it has done is it's been able to take advantage of the experiences which we've had over the first 2.5 years and put all of that together to package a set of measures that will increase the public good. What the minister has done is actually created a budget that basically is going to create better working conditions, create better conditions for business, better conditions for young people, better conditions for entrepreneurs who want to invest, in particular in the our Green State Development Plan. And most importantly, there are no new taxes in this budget.
This budget has offered quite a lot. in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, all the sectors.
We continue on the journey to a good life. And that alone speaks for itself. Meaning, for me, the hinterland is now being recognized as a place that we must open up, a place that has the extractive industries for so long, and we have not been sort of repaying the natural environment. Now it's the time for the hinterland to be playing that part in getting ready for the anticipated development.
Generally, I believe that the budget is a good midterm budget. It is not meant to excite, and it is meant to stabilize, and I believe that it has delivered in that context as well. The minister has delivered. We have had extensive meetings with the various associations representing forestry, mining, etc., and he has responded. And so I'm very pleased, and the industry is going to be very pleased.
Excellent for the workers, for the business people, generally to address the poor, the needy. It was an excellent budget. And I note that the minister took his time to ensure that he looked at what we said we would have done in 2017 to explain the challenges and to show that despite all of the challenges that we have encountered over 2015, we were still able to come out with a positive growth. And in 2018, he was still able to make several concessions for the business community, for the workers of Guyana, and also for those persons who are doing small businesses. He has shown the government's interest in ensuring we address poverty at all levels, and I believe that the budget is all encompassing. It has touched every section of our society. And if we look at where our objectives lie, then I believe that all Guyanese would agree with me that this was an excellent budget.
The journey continues. I mean, we've done a lot of work in 2016, 2015, 2016, 2017, and it continues. I mean, obviously, we are now pushing out through all the programs we started, Linden and Mabura. We're doing work in Region 1, we're doing work in the hinterland regions. Very good budget to continue our progress and hopefully to carry us right up to 2020. I am very excited on things that I have planned for you in 2018, including addressing our electricity sector.
I thought it was a good budget given the challenges that we've had. I think people forget that in the first 2 years, you know, the government had to put close to $32 billion into the sugar industry. So the reality is that there are limited resources, there are limited funds. But I am excited as to what the minister was still able to do given those challenges. So for start, I know the folks in the tourism sector, finally there was some progress in terms of those duty-free concessions on vehicles that they need to transport the tourists in our tourism-related areas. I thought it was very good too that in terms of some of the tax benefits, there are quite a few in there for a range of people. The one that comes to mind right now is the opportunity for people that haven't worked an entire year to still get the tax benefit. In several of the other areas, a lot of innovation and focus on daycare and childcare facilities are being able to claim a tax benefit. Also for the for businesses that are targeting individuals that have any kind of disability. I think that's an area that he mentioned that quite often in Guyana, we still have buildings with no facilities for the differently abled, so I thought that was very important. I think overall, and of course we were able to give a benefit, an increase in the rate of the pension. I know many people will think that that was not a lot, but the reality is that in the last 2 years, pensions have gone up 49%. So when you look at it in that way, I think, you know, we're continuing to at least do as much as we can. There was an increase in old age pension. Most importantly, the VAT on education was removed. Many of us, I know in my party also, we were A little disappointed that that had to be in the budget last year, so that is gone. So overall, I'm quite excited.
Well, I'm happy that they did treat a social cohesion as well as youth and particularly culture separately, in the sense that they were catered for, and I'm happy for that.
It's a people-friendly budget. It speaks about the continuing of a good journey, and I'm really pleased with the education part of it. You know, we're talking about working in technical and vocational education. We're talking about doing a lot more in the hinterland. We're talking about removal of VAT and private education. So there are lots of things in the budget that I think are good, that are people-friendly, that meet the ordinary people. And so I think it was a really excellent budget.
Well, I think budget 2018 met the expectation of the ordinary men and women of Guyana. It met the expectation, even the opposition. They were surprised that it caught them off guard. Some of the things that they lobbied, it actually was given, in terms that it was reviewed and it was delivered. So I think budget 2018 is a very good budget, and when implemented, the full impact will be felt by the people of this country, and they will feel part of the economy in terms of this good life.
I have absolutely no trouble with the budget. I like the measures the Minister of Finance would have rolled out. You know, some of the issues or the measures that were implemented for budget 2017. You have seen that, you know, we were able to make some amount of amendments to those measures. So I think, you know, budget 2018, the good life, a journey to a good life continues, you know, that's the main theme. And I know that this budget is in good hands.
Well, I think it was a characteristically meticulous and thorough presentation by Finance Minister Jordan. And he's attempted to spell out as best as he could the measures that need to be taken to get where we want to go. And I think that it's an optimistic budget, but I think that the goals are achievable and we have to work hard to get them done.
One of the measures that I really like is pertaining to the remote area incentive that will be given to the hinterland teachers. The 80% I think is very, very good, from 7,000 to 12,600. I know the hinterland teachers will be very happy, and it will help them living in those remote areas. You know how difficult it is. The cost of living is very high. So I am happy that they were able to get that this year.
I think it was an extremely good budget, well thought out. There's no eye water there at all. It has made the common man. It caters for everybody, from the elderly all through the life cycles. In terms of VAT, you know, we talk about education and private education and VAT, and that has been taken off. So I think it's really very good for the common man, and I look forward to the debates and the budget being passed so that we can able to get on to our development.
Budget 2018, if you can see I'm smiling. That means with regards to the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, we manage well. We were given allocations for several really great projects to empower the indigenous people, of course, financially. The indigenous people need to feel that they can earn just like anybody else. You know, giving them a tractor, motor, and a boat, and a spade, and a fork, that is not empowerment. That is, you know, we term them as handouts.
This budget is an investment in development. It's an investment that will lead to prosperity. It's a budget that will capitalize on the potential or natural potential to lead to prosperity and to people's development. The considerable investment of $261 billion being pumped into the economy will lead to an upsurge in business activity. It will provide considerable stimulus to our economy. It will provide hope. It will provide jobs. This budget invests heavily in our people and in our development process.